So let me explain what you're currently looking at. This is 14 new co-sponsors to the Kids Online Safety Act, and this is the American equivalent to the UK's Online Safety Act that came into effect 2 weeks ago. And as everybody has seen, especially what I've been talking about for the last 2 weeks, we have all seen that that Safety Act that was passed in the UK has been used for everything but actually protecting kids. We had politicians openly admitting it was meant to censor adults and censor freedom of expression and free speech. You have people being labeled terrorists or extremists for even talking about mass migration within the UK. You have a police monitoring task force that was created within 24 hours of the law coming into effect in UK, and we have seen from example that the law is doing anything but actually protecting kids. We have had Spotify now being forced to have age verification and forced ID, Discord as well. We have had YouTube now follow up and now even forcing residents in the United States doing it. There's even talks that GTA Online is going to be having forced age verification and also forced ID in the future. And then we also have the entire situation with politicians actively talking about and supporting the Screen Act that is also a completely different bill that is trying to become law in the United States that pretty much does the exact same thing as the Kids Online Safety Act. You have all these politicians coming together to try to censor the internet and censor freedom of expression, censor fiction, and it is getting a lot worse. And what makes this very, very big and why this is important to talk about is that ever since the whole censorship thing hit the internet back in on the 19th and 20th of July, we have seen the internet collectively start to talk about this. We've seen the internet try to speak up that this is not okay, this is not right, and when, the UK law came into effect around the 25th and 26th, obviously we've seen even more conversation around this. We have seen a lot of people outcry that this is not okay, this is an invasion of privacy, this is obviously overstepping government overreach, the government shouldn't have to step in to parent kids when the parents should be parenting and stop being lazy, and I'll get all into more of that in a moment. But the point is ever since that went down, 14 new politicians, senators of the United States, Democrats and Republicans, have decided to co-sponsor the Kids Online Safety Act. You can see when they did their co-sponsorship, and I will go up where you can see date co-sponsored. This is the Kids Online Safety Act, and if you scroll down, ever since everything hit the internet with the drama and the censorship and the worry and everything, on July 31st, you had 14 new senators agree to co-sponsor this. And you can see that there is 8 Republicans and 6 Democrats. Pretty close, honestly. Pretty even. And that's not including what's all up above as well with Democrats and Republicans as well. Both sides of the political spectrum are wanting this bill to pass. Both sides are wanting this to pass for they can do their own version of government overreach and be able to censor the internet in any shape or form, which is pretty terrifying. When you have both sides of politics agreeing on something like this, it's probably not good, because typically they like people arguing, they like people fighting amongst each other, and the fact that they are willing to try to pass this, and they're trying to slide it under everybody's noses, is pretty horrifying. It actually is scary, especially when you take a look at everything else that is going on the internet in just the last 2 weeks. We have all seen it with the whole Steam stuff, itch.io, and everything else in between, so we know it's not good news, especially from what we have seen this happen to UK, and now other companies that's even in the United States following suit. Not good. So, the reason why I'm bringing this up is that it's very clear that these politicians, these senators, have probably heard the internet talk about this, and they are definitely trying to give this more momentum and trying to get this passed as quickly as possible, because you're not telling me all these politicians are completely unaware of what's going on right now on the internet. You know for a fact that they have people that research things of what the public are saying. They probably browse their social media sites and see what they're saying about them or certain policies or whatever. You know for a fact these officials do that. And the fact that despite everything that's been going on in the last 2 weeks and the obvious public outcry about it and about censorship as well, you have these 14 new co-sponsors come in on the 31st. Definitely goes to show what's going on here. Another thing I do want to point out is that we have seen a lot more politicians as of late starting to talk about this situation, trying to, say that more stuff needs to be censored online. For instance, this Attorney General James, he made this post yesterday, and I once again want to reinstate that this is all happening. All these politicians are talking about this after the public outcry from everybody around the world. From what we've seen from, for instance, the UK, people from in the EU, people on social media, people in Australia, what's happened to Steam, what's happened to itch.io. They're obviously obviously has been a lot of vocalness to this entire matter. I mean, you even have MasterCard having to make an official statement saying, oh, you know, we didn't do anything, we didn't censor anything, but it's very obvious they have. We know that. It's a bunch of lies. But the point is that it's causing enough stink. There is enough outcry that even a big companies like MasterCard are having to speak out on it, or at least make an official statement to try to act like they're innocent. So it's very clear that these politicians have definitely seen it, but despite that, they're completely ignoring what we're having to say. They're ignoring what we want, and it showcases that both sides don't care. They want to censor the internet. They want to force age verification and ID and collect your data, know what you're doing, and also censor you if you probably say something that they don't necessarily agree with. And we know that censorship's ongoing, and a lot of companies are trying to hide it as well. Let's think about what happened on Reddit yesterday. We had a giant post that had over 16,000 upvotes just straight up get removed by Reddit moderators because for no reason, honestly. And it was just basically talking about YouTube blocking VPNs. And regardless if the post was removed by an auto mod or not, it is very suspicious that we're just collectively seeing a lot of these big companies rallying together, trying to force age verification or ID in some way, and then even trying to quell this topic. I mean, I've talked about this already, that it's very clear that YouTube is trying to push this content down in the algorithm. They don't want people speaking out about this. They don't want people talking about it. It's very obvious. I've seen a lot of channels that are talking about the situation getting half the views that they normally would for these type of videos, which I think says a lot. But obviously, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. The point of the matter is that a lot of these politicians are now really trying to get the Kids Online Safety Act passed. When you have 14 new politicians come out of nowhere and are like, yeah, we're co-sponsoring this on July 31st, you know for a fact they heard everybody, but they don't care. That's concerning. Once again, the only way to really stop this is continuing to call your local representative, call your senators, and tell them you don't like this. And if they decide to pass this, honestly, the next solution, vote them out. That's really the only way to do it at this point, because it's like, I can't believe there's so many politicians on both sides approving this. It just goes to show the rampant corruption. And I've already mentioned this before, but I find it ironic. We're having such a push for censoring the internet, all in the name of think of the children or protect the children, while the whole Epstein stuff is going on. Like, let's think about that for a second, okay? We have this whole controversy in July, and still ongoing right now, with Epstein's list being released, for everybody to see what's going on, to see the criminals that have gotten away with some heinous acts. We have literally our government trying to make it hush-hush or try to act like you're a conspiracy theorist for even wanting to talk about it. And then, as soon as this all happens, suddenly, payment processors, collective shout, and all these different governments just decide to, hey, we gotta start censoring the internet and think of the children. It's clear what's going on. It's rallying everybody as a deflection, but also as a way to stop you from communicating with each other, stop you from talking about the situation. Once again, I could be labeled a conspiracy theorist, but it's odd. It's very odd. All this is happening at the exact same time, especially with one of the most notorious criminals now, at least in the modern era. Epstein obviously did a lot of horrific stuff, and there's obviously a lot of clients and stuff he had, and many around the world want to know who did the horrific stuff. We want to know for they can face charges. They can go to prison for the rest of their life. We want to see it. And so I think that in general, it's odd. All this decides to magically start happening, and all these bills are being sped run around the world to get passed. Now, backing up for a second, I do want to talk about the Attorney General and give some more clarity to this post that he made, because a lot of people might click on what he's talking about and misunderstand what's going on here. Now, this is Attorney General James. He is the Attorney General of the state of Florida of the United States, and he is doing the exact same thing that we've seen other governments, for instance like UK, do recently, with using the optics of think of the children or protect the children. Now, when you click on this link, and if you were to go into it and you start reading what he's talking about, on paper, it makes sense. Morally and everything, it's what I've been talking about already. That these politicians, these governments, these businesses, these activist groups are using the wording of think of the children or protect the children as a barrier to completely shut down any outcry to this. Because if you outcry this, you talk about this in a negative light, you're deemed a weirdo. You're deemed a freak. You're deemed someone that obviously needs to be thrown in jail or prison, for instance. Because, like, why would you want to stop protections for children. Like, why would you not want to protect kids from seeing things they shouldn't? Which, I'm just going to be blunt here, I'm going to say it. Kids obviously shouldn't be on, crazy, messed up sites. Very obvious. But we're not in a perfect world. And these governments obviously are not using verification and ID and stuff in a way to protect kids. It is restrictions for adults. It is to gather information on adults. I don't trust random sites, like for instance, porn sites, to have my information, for instance, and have my ID on file. It's not something I want, and we've already seen examples, multiple examples, just in the last 2 weeks on how this is a bad thing. For one, obviously low-hanging fruit is UK with the Online Safety Act. I don't think I need to elaborate on that one. But the other one is the T-App. The T-App literally had a straight-up data breach. Thousands upon thousands of IDs just straight up released to the public and all that. Private chat boxes and everything. And if that can happen, it can happen to other sites, other companies, if they request your ID or age or whatever. So you can see the damage here. It's a scary reality, and what's going on here is not necessarily to protect kids. It is just to data collect. It is to collect data on you, sell your data, to make more money off of you, and also to know what you say or see or whatever, for they can censor you or even potentially monitor you, for they can arrest you if you have the wrong political opinion on something. It's not good. It's not. And these optics that these, politicians, the Attorney General, and all that are using is a cover to get away with this. To use the statement of, think of the children. It's not good. It's very shady, and it really disgusts me how many are doing this, because it's the exact same wording that the UK did. It is the same thing they said, they kept pushing, and then we saw within 24 hours of the law passing, monitoring task force for adults. And it's very obvious that was not for kids. So, I think I rest my case on that one. Anyways, what is going on here with what he is advocating for here is not necessarily the Kids Online Safety Act or even the Screen Act. He is advocating for just full-blown ID identification, enforced ID identification and stuff, and age verification on 18-plus adult sites, which in theory sounds fine. It does, if you look at it like that. But the problem is I'm going to go back to the T-App. Do you trust sites to have your ID? First off, do you? Do you trust these sites of all sites to have your ID? On top of that, we got to think about this. This is a slippery slope. Once you allow this, the door opens up with vague laws. And it gets into what I actually talked about earlier today. And actually for videos now. It's a Trojan horse. It's a Trojan horse disguised to censor only the icky stuff, the bad content, but they sneak in these very vague laws that can come in and target anything they want in a few years or even months, depending. Because if you let them sneak it in through the front gate, it's gonna happen. And that's what's going on here. It's a Trojan horse. That's what they've been doing. Because it's easy to advocate that, oh, let's get rid of 18-plus sites, let's protect the children. It's very easy to advocate for that. But it's clear it's nothing about that. It's not. And once again, this gets into my discussion I had yesterday. Parental controls are there for a reason. They have been there for decades. Parents should be parenting their kids. It shouldn't be the government. Parents should stop being lazy. What's the point of parental controls on all these devices if we're not using them? If the government has to step in. You get my point. It shouldn't be the big government having to watch you and know what you're doing and get all your information to make sure your kids don't get on something. You should be parenting, is my main point here. But obviously, there's more to this, which let's get into the next topic at hand. A few days ago, the Straw Hat Pirate flag from One Piece was labeled a terrorist icon or an extremist symbol within Indonesia, which caused obviously a lot of conversation around it, but there has been an update to this story since it happened a few days ago. The Indonesian president apparently made an official comment on it and said that it's completely fine if you rep the Straw Hat Pirate flag and raise it during Independence Month, which this is just overall, this is some welcome good news after just a series of bad news after bad news. But it is honestly insane. It's an insane moment to really think that we're in a point of reality right now where you have to have a president of a country literally say it's okay to use the straw hat flag, to raise the straw hat flag in our country on Independence Day. It's... what is going on in reality, man? I can't believe these words right now are leaving my mouth about One Piece and being labeled a terror symbol. Like, that's insane! Like, we have lost the plot. We have actually lost the plot, man. We have lost the plot of just reality right now. I cannot believe 2025 has turned out like this. I never would have expected going into 2025 we would be living a situation like this, where I would see One Piece like this. Just One Piece alone, not even including all the other stuff, just One Piece being associated with stuff like this is just nuts. And the fact that you have to have the president of a country even comment on it is what is wild to me. But I am happy to hear some good news to the story. However, there is some doom and gloom to this, sadly. There is talks from people within Indonesia that said that this obviously could be lies, or at the very least that some of the politicians and stuff within Indonesia might not listen. Now, I don't know if this is true. Obviously, I don't live there, so I can't really say. I'm just going to be blunt. But this is what I've been told from some people that live in Indonesia. Okay? That's all I'm going to say. So, if this turns out to be true, is left to be seen. But it is still nice to see a president comment on this. That's all I'm going to say. So, let's move on to the next big thing, which is another politician, actually, which, this is just straight up good news, actually. Just straight up good news. This is a Japanese politician fighting for freedom of expression and anti-censorship, which is just, it's a breath of fresh air, honestly, after all the stench and stink that we've been seeing for the last few weeks. I've talked about this man already, but he's just been a very active advocate in Japan for freedom of expression, for manga authors, anime, for just literature in general, and he's been actively, like, you know, retweeting stuff for, like, you know, stuff that's going on in UK, stuff that's going on in America, stuff that's going on around the world, different platforms censoring stuff. It's very clear that this politician, straight up, is fighting for the people, and it's a rare thing to see, and I'm just very happy to see that despite him being a Japanese politician, he is fighting for other countries. He doesn't need to do that, but he is. He's not just fighting for his country, he's fighting for the world, and I appreciate that immensely, and I think a lot of people do, and I think a lot of people have become aware of him thanks to this, and regardless if we want to look at this as a PR stunt or not, it is still wonderful. It is wonderful to see at least a politician high up in politics trying to fight for people. And it doesn't just stop here, they even actually brought it to everybody's attention that apparently Adobe is starting to censor content creators, like creators that do art on Adobe. Now, I'm a little bit loose on this one, but basically from my initial research on this, Adobe hasn't changed the terms of service since 2024, but they have had a lot of loose wording. For instance, the quote-unquote lewd wording. Like, for instance, if an image or something is lewd, it can cause your account to be suspended. And obviously, the wording of lewd is pretty vague. It is. Like, you might think it isn't, but it is. Like, for instance, what constitutes as lewd? It obviously comes up to the individual, or depends on the individual looking at it if it's lewd or not. For instance, is a woman just posing for the camera that looks pretty or beautiful, is that considered lewd? Is a certain pose considered lewd, even if they're fully clothed? Is them winking at the camera or whatever, is that considered lewd? You get the point. And so you have actual people that have bought Adobe and using Adobe getting their account suspended. And obviously the Japanese politician here, he comments on this and brings it to people in English and is letting everybody know that this is what's going on. And so this apparently is starting within Japan, like someone from Japan commented on this, and now it seems like it's spreading other places. So once again, we get to see that other companies are censoring with their vague terms and trying to really go after fictional art. Japan is also still under attack as well for their freedom of expression, and I'm bringing this to people's attention too. It's really messed up, honestly, because regardless if Adobe hasn't changed their terms, the terms are so vague, it's just up to anybody's interpretation of what is considered lewd. So yeah, it's a problem. It legitimately is. So with all that being said, I'm going to wrap up this video here. I appreciate all of you watching this video. Thank you so much for commenting, liking, or, you know, sharing this with other people. It helps with the algorithm. It allows more people to be aware of what's going on, because obviously YouTube and a lot of these different companies and governments don't want you to know about this. They don't want you to hear about this. And so, for everyone that is supporting these videos, I thank you. You all have a very blessed day or night wherever you live. Chibi out.